What's up, good people? This is Daniil, and I'm back at it again. After 2 years of not making any videos, I've decided that this is the right time for me to start making them again. And what's funny, I gained more followers on YouTube while I was not making any videos than I gained while I was making videos. Maybe it's a sign, but who knows? And the topic of today is ChatGPT. OpenAI just announced this function calling feature that literally changes the game for developers using ChatGPT API. So let's read what function calling really is. Developers can now describe functions to GPT-4 and GPT 3.5 and have the model intelligently choose the output a JSON object containing arguments to call those functions. This is a new way to more reliably connect GPT's capabilities with external tools and APIs. So for example, you can say email Anya to see if she wants to get coffee next Friday to a function call like send email. So basically, in other words, you can write your own functions, tell ChatGPT that these are the functions that exist in my code. And if a user, for example, asks about weather or asks me to write an email, tell me in the response that I need to call this function. I will call this function, give you the response, and then you make sense of it. And it's really great. It allows you to do a lot more with ChatGPT API more reliably. So I started reading the docs and I found this code example here, and it didn't work. I found out that when you call this get current weather function, they don't properly extract the location and unit from their own API response because it comes in as a JSON and they're just not doing this in the right way. So I've decided to come up with my own code example and we're going to go through this, but there's also a more thorough explanation on how to do this in this Jupyter book. So if you have time, you can totally go through it, but it's pretty long. And I guess watching the video is more entertaining. So let's dive right into the code sample that I've prepared for you. So what I have here is a people JSON file that consists of 50 contacts or people that I have here with a first name, last name, department, desired salary, phone number, and a country. We have only two countries that we support, USA and Canada. Well, this just sounds wrong, but you know what I mean. In this file, we have only USA and Canada, and departments. It's a enum or set of departments that only consists of engineering, management, customer support, and sales. And the entire logic of the function that I'm about to call is here in this find people function that intakes department and a country, then it loads a JSON file, goes through every record, and if the country and department matches, it appends the people array and then returns it as JSON. We need to make a note here that the functions that the model will call or the results that model is able to digest should be in JSON. So that's why we're not just returning an array, we're actually returning a string array that is actually a valid JSON. And for people, we're using JSON dump to convert our people array to a valid JSON. So before we dive deeper into this code, let's just run it and see the end result. So my query is find salespeople in Canada. We also have a debug message here just to see what the model response is. We can see it from here. We can see our query, find salespeople in Canada, and this is what the response is. The response is function call. The arguments that it got from my query is department sales, country, Canada, and function name find people. So here are some salespeople in Canada. That's what the response of the model is that already contains the data it got from the find people function. So Emma Brown, Abigail Gonzalez. So we can even take this name and make sure that this person actually exists in our people JSON file. And Abigail Gonzalez from sales in Canada with the desired salary of 73,000. So that's exactly what we see here. And that's pretty much what it's doing. So let's take a look at the code and understand at a deeper level what's happening here. So our main function is just calling this run conversation and providing it with the argument of our query, which is a string find salespeople in Canada. And then it makes a API request to ChatGPT, a chat completion request with the model, in our case is GPT-4, but it also works with GPT 3.5. In the message, I put role user and content our query. Also, this is a new parameter. I define functions. Functions, it's an array of objects, and every object here is a function that ChatGPT should know about. So in our case, we only have find people function. We have a description, find people by department and country. I assume this is used by the model to understand better what this function is used for. And then we have a JSON schema of parameters that describe what are the parameters that the model should provide to call our function properly. So we have a department and a country. Department is a type of string and a description that describe what this parameter is for. It's an optional parameter, so it will work without it, and our enum that is a list of our departments that are available. And same thing for country. We have Canada and USA, and it's a string. And here I didn't even provide a description because the name country is pretty self-explanatory. Also, we have a required field. It's the only required parameter is department because country by default is set to USA. So you don't have to provide a country if you don't want to. So after that, we make this request and we get a response, we get our message. And in the message, we check if the function call field exists, and if it does, it means the model is trying to call a function to get a response. So we what we do here is we call this call function that is basically a wrapper around find people. So why we need this is because, as you can see in function call, the arguments come in as JSON, so they're not really like a list of parameters or an object, so we need to decode it before we can use it. So this is basically what call function is doing. It's taking arguments and then decodes the JSON, and then you can use this JSON object and extract department and country. Also, if our function name is not find people, which technically should be impossible since this is the only function that we define, we're just returning an empty array string. But if everything's fine, we're just calling the find people with our parameters. After that, after we call our function, we get a response, the function response, and we make another chat completion API request to ChatGPT, and it will now contain two messages. That is our query, then the previous response that we got from our previous request, and also the response that we got from our function. Pardon me, I said two messages, it's actually three messages. So our third message is actually a role of function that contains the list of the people that we got from the people JSON. And after that, we can get our result. So let's now try something else. What if we give it a more filters? Like, what if we say find salespeople in Canada with desired salary below 80K? It's gonna tell me that you seem to be requesting a specific action that involves filtering salespeople by their location, Canada, and preferring salary below a certain amount. But unfortunately, the develop function is not supporting that. And now it's telling me that I should add this parameter to our function. So the ChatGPT 4 is pretty smart about it. So our result is none because it couldn't filter by the desired salary. But if we use ChatGPT 3.5, for example, and we do that same query again, we're going to get a different result. Okay, so here it just responded me with this: sorry for the confusion, but SCI model, I don't have access to personal data. This doesn't even make any sense. I guess it's because it failed to understand that it needs to call our function because the parameters that I've asked do not match. So it's not perfect. ChatGPT 4 definitely works better than 3.5, but nevertheless, it's a huge step forward in terms of structured responses that we can get from ChatGPT to use in our applications. Just imagine all the things that you can now do with this functionality. Before, it was only possible to the selected group of people with access to plugins, but now this functionality is available to everyone, and you can query databases, you can call any sort of API, all the dynamic stuff that you were thinking about. In my opinion, it's a really huge leap forward, and I am really looking forward to see all the stuff that people are going to come up with using this new function calling feature. Well, that's it for today. Thank you for watching, guys. Subscribe to the channel, press the like button for the algorithm to propagate this video, and I hope you enjoyed it. See you in the next videos.